The three of us can keep a secret just as long as I kill both of you.
So how hard is it to cheat at a casino?
Well, it isn't hard at all to cheat. The hard part's getting away with it. There's all kinds of guys that cheat, and I do a whole program. Why do we only catch the amateurs? And I'll show somebody. I'll show the surveillance staff or casino staff or cops the same trick being done by professionals, and then the same trick being done by amateurs, and say what's the difference. One of them is technique, the second is the setup, and third, this is the intangible, is that the pros know when not to move. When they feel heat or they see something that just doesn't set right with them, they scrub the play and live to fight another day. So a lot of the great casino cheats never really got caught in the casino. They got ratted out. It's funny, there's an old Arabic saying, Fleta alam bihaluser is at 9 maitin. The three of us can keep a secret just as long as I kill both of you.
So how often is this happening? Because in my mind, I feel like this would be like a rare thing. But how often is this happening every day in every casino?
Well, not every day in every casino, but every day. One of the most interesting arrests that I was ever involved in was we caught a fella sitting at a game with a big black coat and 3 buttons on his sleeve. Well, 2 of the 3 buttons were false. One of the buttons covered the face of a digital camera lens, and the other covered the face of an infrared light. Infrared light is higher than the human eye can see. And they would run a wire up his sleeve and under his armpit and down his side into a fanny pack. Contained 4-seal lithium batteries. And on his back he had a walkie-talkie. Understand he's taking pictures, high-speed pictures from his sleeve, but he can't see them. So they had a radio on his back with an earpiece that came up to his ear. They covered the wiring with Band-Aids, so it looked like he cut himself shaving. Now, if he goes to his body, and too often, it'll look too obvious to surveillance or the floor person, so he doesn't control the batteries or the radio with his hands. He controls them with his toes. He runs wires down his pants, into his shoes, oversized boots, heavy wool socks, a toe switch in each sock. If he raises his right toe, turns the power off and on to the battery. Raise the left toe, he turns the earpiece off and on so he can hear his partner. Now, he's taking high-speed pictures from his buttonhole, but he doesn't really know exactly where to aim. So, in order to get the video off the game, on his back he's wearing a flatboard 2 gigahertz microwave plate that connects to a signal strength amplifier so he can shoot at greater distances and go through the concrete and steel of our casino. Their camera is running about, 50 times faster than a standard surveillance camera, so they could freeze a playing card in midair. They could freeze a shuffle. They could freeze a shuffle machine back in the day and reconstruct it to see the order of the cards that are going to come out in the next game, the next shoe. So this guy's all wired up on the game, and his partner is hiding in a little truck in a parking lot, and inside is the high-speed recorder and a 48-inch microwave dish. Shoot a beam through his back, through the casino, hit him in his back, tell him where to aim his arm, all this to pick off your whole card and pick off shuffles and so on and so forth. All right, so that's the technology. They're doing today exactly the same thing, but with cell phones. So cell phones are now the biggest threat to table game security.
What are people doing with them, though? Are they just taking pictures with them or communicating through them, or how does that?
Okay, so card counting is, for instance, is not illegal if you do it in your head. If you keep track and you know what cards got put away, so that tells you what's left in the shoe, and if a lot of little cards got put away, that means there's a lot of big cards left in the shoe. And if there are big cards left in the shoe or in the dealer's hand, the players have the advantage because of the extra payoff on a blackjack. Nick, if you're betting $100 and the house gets a blackjack, you lose $100. But if you get exactly the same two cards, you win 150. So the face cards and the aces are more important for the player, not because they get them more often, they get more money when they get them. So most of the time it's flat. But if you notice extra little cards getting put away and there's extra big cards left, you bet bigger.
You're just kind of stacking the odds a little bit in your favor.
Well, you're not stacking them because you don't make it happen. You just recognize it when it does. About 20% of the time, the cards fall just right where the players have the advantage over the house. Now, if you recognize that advantage in your head, that's perfectly legal. If you use a device, and over the years we've caught them with toe switches in each shoe, and you could enter 1, 2, 4, 8, and it would keep track of all the cards that got played, and then it would vibrate these pads on your thighs to tell you when to bet big or small, whatever. We'd catch them, strip them down, take the stuff off their body, exit them from the property, sometimes aggressively. But if they went to the gaming commission, we'd have to give it back. They have devices as simple as a car key, a key fob. You press the door open button to keep track of little cards, the door close button. For big cards, you press the trunk button and it vibrates. Long vibrations means it's good for you. Short vibrations means it's good for the house. Now they have cell phones that have playing card recognition. So I have the cell phone running, or I have a camera connected to the cell phone, and all I have to do is look at the cards. I don't have to click anything. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to memorize anything or keep track of big and little. The program does it for me and then tells me when to bet big and little. So virtually every cheating scheme that was done in the past that involved a hidden camera or technology has now been adapted to be done with cell phones.
So it's kind of the same thing, just new technology.
Absolutely. We caught a fella, he was playing a video poker machine, but he always had his hand under his armpit or under his boob, like he was scratching himself. But it turns out he was a retired rocket scientist, and he had reverse engineered the random number generator of the old video poker machine. So he would enter his cards that he saw dealt on the screen. And back then they would deal 10 cards at once, 5 that you could see and 5 you couldn't see. Well, he was able to see the cards that he wasn't supposed to see. Now skip ahead to today's gaming world, and the Russians, cheaters, have hacked our slot machines. They would wear a cell phone on their body, cover it in mesh, and they would take a picture of 20 to 30 outcomes of a particular brand or platform slot machine. They would live stream those decisions to a mega computer. Now, you know, the slot machine computer has a very high speed process by which it goes from one decision to the next. It's interesting to know that as soon as you press that button, the outcome is done. The real spin just to make it look good, but it already knows where it's going. Now, there's a particular speed at which that processor runs. Their mega computer is running 100,000 times faster than our slot machine. And at first it was incomprehensible to the casino world to think that somebody could reverse engineer the algorithm of a slot machine. And I said, well, you dumbass, some human being wrote that program. So somebody knows exactly how that program goes from one decision to the next, and what are the hidden states, the hidden features, the difficult math, and now you're running it at one speed and I'm analyzing it 100,000 times faster. So they would put their 30 decisions into their program, running 100,000 times faster, and it would go like this, and it would catch up. Now they couldn't make a jackpot occur, but they knew how far into the progression bigger payoffs were likely to happen. And they would get a vibration on their leg and have a quarter second to press the button to hopefully get that higher jackpot, higher payoff. All right, so just like I told you about the old timers, something just didn't look right. They got caught in casinos when the audit department would send a report to surveillance saying this particular slot machine had a lot of coin out, money going out, but not enough money going in to justify. Now, usually that just meant that after they collected the money today, Grandma hit a big jackpot, and so the par value wasn't where it's supposed to be yet. But they got caught in a couple of different joints around the country. Surveillance is watching a customer hover with his finger over the play button and then just poke at it very quickly, and that's kind of what got them onto it. Something just didn't look right in the play.
If you were to kind of look at it from in terms of like, okay, the casino's priorities with all the things that are going on, 1 is the lowest, number 5 is the highest. Where on that scale does kind of cheating fall? Like, how big of a priority is it for casinos?
Game protection doesn't make any money. It saves money. It gives you a comfort level, allows you to sleep at night. My job in many cases is to give a comfort level so that if we lose money, that the chairman of the board or the owner of the casino knows it wasn't a scam, it wasn't advantage play, it was on the square. Now, in the overall scheme, I will take hands per hour and customer service in a casino over game protection. Because if we don't have customers coming in and we're not good to them when they get here and we don't offer them what they want to see or experience in our casino, we won't have a hell of a lot of money to protect.
So on that scale of like 1 to 5, are we talking like it'd be like a 2 or?
Yeah, 2 or 3. You know, there are some interesting schemes that have cost the casinos in the last, say, 10 or 12 years. There's a scheme where the players have a camera in their sleeve, and as they go to put the cut card in before a game, as a courtesy, you let the customer cut the card. Well, they run the cut card back and forth across the cards being held by the dealer, and on one of those passes, they riffle through the cards with their thumbnail, and their hidden camera takes a picture. Now they have a sequence of cards coming out in the next shoe, and they know the exact order. They can predict the winner or loser in a baccarat game. They know where the hitters stand or take insurance in blackjack and so on. At any rate, that's probably maybe the biggest scheme that's happened since in the last 10 or 12 years. We estimate somewhere around 100 million worldwide. And anytime you estimate based on historic losses, you can assume 2 or 3 times that much based on losses that were not attributed to that, or you didn't report them, or you just didn't even know that it happened to you, basically. There was a big controversy in the gaming world based on a fellow named Phil Ivey.
The name is familiar. Poker player, right?
He's arguably the greatest money poker player who ever lived. Well, Phil won $12 million at a casino in London and $9.6 million at the Borgata in Atlantic City. And both the casinos accused him of cheating in the form of edge sorting. And the whole thing revolves around playing cards that get printed properly, but they get cut off center a little bit. So if you take any deck of cards and look at the edge diamonds or edge border or edge pattern on the card, you will find 60 to 70% of the decks are irregular. And that means nothing, because if you shuffle the cards properly, spin half of them and wash properly, they can't be taken advantage of. But imagine, let's make it a simple thing. Let's suppose that we sat down on a game and we spun all the aces and faces in one direction and kept all the little cards in the opposite direction. All that means is, in the next hand to play, or once we've done enough cards, we can look at the dealer's hand and determine with fair accuracy, do they have high cards or low cards? It doesn't tell us the exact card, it just tells us a group. Well, that's all Phil Ivey. Actually, Phil Ivey didn't do anything. The girl he was with asked for a particular brand of cards and a particular color. So she knew in advance that these cards were miscut. Then she said, I'd like to have a hand shuffle, no machine shuffle. No hand shuffle, just a machine shuffle. Well, during hand shuffles, you wash the cards. That would mess up the pattern. But a machine shuffle, they don't wash them, they just put them in the machine. Then she wanted a Mandarin-speaking dealer so she could understand each other. Then she said, when you deal the cards, before you turn them over, show us each card. And it sounded quirky, but, the Asian customers are the best customers in the world, but they're also superstitious. They acquiesced. They showed him each card. Well, every time she showed him, and they put him back face down. And then when she'd point at the card and go like this and say, turn that card over longwise. And then if she went like this, she'd say, turn that card over sideways. What she was doing in the first shoe was turning all the 9s and the 8s and the 7s in one direction and leaving all the weak cards in the opposite. So during the first shoe of play, Phil lost $400,000 or so. That's what his attorney told me. During the next shoe of play, they'd look at the opening in the shoe, and if it had a big diamond, it was a good card. They bet on the player. The player side always gets the first card. If it was anything else, they bet on the bank side because the player was going to get a weak card. So they didn't know the exact card. It's just like me saying to you, Nick, you have an advantage by knowing it's a good card, so you bet the player. If it's a weak card, you bet the bank because the player's going to get a weak card. The mathematicians estimate he had about a 6 or 7% overall advantage. Well, in 2 days of play, he won $12 million in London.
So they were just looking at the way the cards were cut, and they could get an idea of what the cards were based on the way that the cards were cut when they were manufactured.
Exactly. Let's just suppose that you're supposed to have perfect half diamonds all around every edge. That's what's supposed to happen. But because they get cut so fast, then you get decks that have a little teeny diamond on one edge, which means the bigger other side will have bigger diamonds. So that's what they were looking for. They call it registration variance, and it creates an irregular border.
When you look at people, like when you look at cheating in casinos, is this usually like just one person or a couple of people doing this, and then they go all over the place doing it, or are these like really organized networks?
You hit it on the head. There's a combination of both. I mean, look at all the internet play that Pac-Man Jones got for adding to a bet. They call it capping. All right, he knew he had a winner. He added to his winning bet to try to get more money. Okay, that's a ridiculously simple and stupid thing to do, especially if you got a camera over your head, you dumbass. Okay, so that's the amateur. The professionals that attempt those sort of things They may mark the cards. For instance, we had a crew that had been arrested over 24 times in the States, and they would play on a face-up game. Cards were face-up, and so the players would not be able to touch the cards. But they would bet minimum bets and always throw a tip to the dealer. And when the dealer would take the tip, the customer would take a chip and he'd press on the face-up face cards, the tens and face cards, and it would create a bump on the back of the card. All right, well, they did it for minimum bets, $5. If the floor person came by, they'd stop. Once they marked up a shoe, they would leave. And 2 or 3 hours later, their partners would show up. They wouldn't bet 500 or 1,000 maximum bets. They'd bet 50, 100, and they'd win 5 or 6,000. They just knew. They didn't know every card. They knew it was a face card or not. If you're going to get a face card, you bet big. If there's a face card in the hole, you take insurance. If the face card is coming out, it would break your hand. You don't take it. So they're an organized crew, and they targeted the entire gaming world. Full shuffle scheme guys, the Tran organization, were indicted in San Diego on 28 counts. Well, 28 counts that they could prove. There were dozens and dozens more where they knew they had hit the casino but did not have enough video or overkill to put it into the indictment. And they went for years, and they estimate somewhere around 12 or 15 million. And in some cases, we've even had customers come to us and said, "Hey, Nick just put extra money on his bet. Can I do that too?" And so they get ratted out. One of the funniest ones, the dealers would take their tips. They have to tap the bankroll to make a sound to let the floor person know that they were getting a tip, and they put it in their top pocket. And then when they were done, they have to take it and go to a big box in the middle of the pit and put all the tips into that box. And collectively, the dealers would pool that money and share equally. So a casino executive goes to this shirt maker one day to have a shirt made. And they're talking back and forth. What casino? Oh, I'm over at the MGM or whatever the hell the casino was. Oh, hey, do you want one of those special pockets? What are you talking about? Says that pocket where you got that slide in it. The kid went to the shirt maker, had him make a special pocket that if he put money in, it would slide down into his underwear at first. And then if he would just press it like this, like a Velcro would seal it, so the last few tips would go in the pocket, he could turn it inside out and show only a few tips going into the box. The rest of them were down in his underwear, and he actually wore pantyhose so they wouldn't fall through and fall on the floor. And he got ratted out by the tailor.
Are you ready for some harder / listener submitted questions?
Sure.
Easiest game to cheat at?
The vast majority of cheating that I see now is being done in player clubs in the slots, where people are stealing free play or working in concert with an inside person to load up a customer card with extra free play. Okay, that's a whole separate issue. That's the slots. Baccarat, depending on who you get to, is the big game for organized cheaters, simply because so much money can be risked on so few cards.
If you can track the cards, there's a big payout.
A big payout. Here's the thing. If you and I, Nick, conspired to steal one hand of blackjack, we're going to win one bet. But with the same number of cards, we steal a baccarat hand, that could be 7 bets because everybody can bet on the same cards. And in some cases, 14 bets. And if some of the casinos in Southern California allow back betting, over-the-shoulder betting, you can have 42 bets on the same number of cards. So baccarat has that advantage for the cheaters, or the advantage play. Take a simple example. If you knew the first card in a blackjack game was an ace, you have a big advantage, 52%. But you're the only one going to get that ace. The first customer is going to get the first card. What if in baccarat you knew the first card was a 9. That means the player side is going to get the most powerful card in Baccarat. Well, not only you, but everybody else on the table can bet the bank. Everybody can move back and forth between player and bank. So that's why Baccarat has been the game of choice for the big cheaters, because so much money is risked on so few cards.
Which one's the hardest one to cheat at?
Well, that's a tough question. It's not hard to cheat at any game if you're willing to put the dedication in. Some of the great thieves I knew, they worked a little differently in the old days. There was a great old crew of dice cheaters. A fellow's been dead for years. I can mention his name, Glenn Grayson. And Glenn had a crew of dice cheaters. And one of the ways they worked, and they were very good, and they had all the guts in the world, and they knew when to move, when not to move. But one of the ways they pulled off a scheme, it was one step short of pulling a gun. They'd walk up to the shift boss on duty that night, and they'd say, "You know who we are, right? Well, you're in for 15%. And he'd nod his head, and you'd think he'd leave the casino. He'd go right there and stand behind the crap table. And you'd see if a dealer saw anybody do a move, slide the dice, put a cube down, add to a bet, whatever the hell they were doing. If they looked up kind of and they saw the boss just sitting like this, staring at them, they knew to keep their mouth shut. Okay, so any game can be cheated.
That's a couple of the questions kind of revolve around that topic. It's like, what was the most complex one you ever saw? We're like, wow, that was smart.
The camera up the sleeve thing was pretty intricate because they lasted over 7 years that I know of. And it was because they stayed small. They would only win $1,000 or $1,500. And in a casino the size of Bally's or MGM or one of those big joints, that doesn't even hit the hit sheet. Nobody even pays attention to it. When they stole 90,000 on a part of one shoe in Baccarat at the Gold Coast, 60,000 at the Frontier, that's when people start calling me. Bally said, "We got 10 joints. Go see if you can find out what's going on." I analyzed their video and realized it was a camera. I do what I do. The cops do what they do. It took 4 months, but we snatched them up in Atlantic City. So had they stayed small, and they were smart, they had different collectors. If the same guy keeps beating you for 1,000 or 1,500 at a time over and over and over again, it just doesn't look right. So they would burn and churn their collectors. So let's suppose, Nikki, you're the collector, and I'm the guy with the all wired up with the devices. You don't know me. You don't know what I have on my body. You don't know anything about any truck in a parking lot. All you know is if I give you a signal, you do one thing. If I give you another signal, you do something else. If I give you the cut sign, that means scrub the play and get up and leave. So the real professional crews have lasted an awful long time. So the real smart crews burn and churn their collectors.
Was there ever one that you couldn't figure out how they were doing it?
Years ago, I was looking at what I know was marked card play. I didn't get a chance to see the actual playing cards, but nothing in the play suggested to me how they actually had marked the cards. Now, you can mark cards high and low, just good from bad. You can mark individual groups, high, medium, and low. You can mark by absolute value. So I know an ace from a king, from a queen, from a jack, and so on. Well, it seemed to me watching the play that these fellas knew the absolute value of every card. I'll swear to this day, when I show the video in a training class, there's no way you can dispute the fact they know the whole card, they know the next card coming. It doesn't mean they win every hand, but they beat this one joint for about $180, 180,000. All right, but I never got to see the cards. So, was it an inside job? I don't know. Did they mark them in advance and then the other guys came in and played it? I don't know. So those are the ones that bother me, because even 10 or 15 years later, I find myself studying the film and saying, what the hell? How did they know that card? Yeah.
Do you think it'll change in the future? Do you think that anything lies ahead in the future that's like, okay, this is going to end it or make it much worse?
I say I start off my mark card training class by saying the worst mark card in the world and the best mark card in the world do exactly the same thing. They just tell you what the front of the card is before you make a decision. So the technology, no doubt, has changed drastically, and it's going to make it easier. It's going to make it more intriguing for the bad guys and more difficult in some cases. But if you saw mark card play from the old days and mark card play from the new days, it still looks like mark card play. The method, the modus operandi, how did they do it, has changed. And that's going to keep changing based on technology. I mean, look at the casinos that have been targeted. When they get a phone call and the kid in the cage thinks he's talking to the owner, and the owner says, put $1.5 million in a bag and bring it to some guy in a parking lot. And it's been going on in casinos all over the country, all over the world.
Wait, so there has been some scams where somebody would just pretend to be like a boss and tell somebody else, meet me in the parking lot with money?
Absolutely. One of the big casinos in downtown Las Vegas, targeted for $1.5 million, joint in west coast of Michigan, 700,000. When it comes to an accounting thing, they've had vendors call and change a bank routing number, and they don't realize I got your bank information, so payments that should have gone to your electrical company are now coming to me, and I snatch that money up and run.
Do casinos cheat?
That's a great question. That really is, because it used to bother me. Well, first of all, we don't cheat customers. We just have a built-in edge. Number two, you get snatched up for stealing my money, and then you whine about getting slapped around a little and thrown out. Why don't you just not steal my money? In 1931, when they opened legal gaming in Nevada, there were 6 sides on the dice, 38 numbers on a wheel, 52 cards in the deck. Now, skip ahead 90 years, it's exactly the same thing, except for 6 to 5 blackjack and certain side bets on the games. So the casino has the same mathematic rate of win that they've had for 100 years. So in selected areas, small joints, yeah. But you're a joint MGM, you got 50 joints around the country. Are you going to take a shot of losing gaming licenses in all 50 jurisdictions or a dozen jurisdictions to try to cheat on a game and then hope that everybody keeps their mouth shut? The intangible always goes back to people brag, people get drunk and stupid, people shoot their mouths off, people use it to get out of jail free. That's going to be the one thing the thieves can't change.